My dude, Ramsey, how's it going, brother?
Hey, it's going
Well,
great.
dude, welcome to the show, man. I've been talking to you about it for, I don't know, probably a month now, maybe something
Yeah,
like that. You're a hard man
yeah.
to schedule.
I don't know. Happy to be here though.
Well, dude,
Glad it finally came.
you're out there selling houses, dude. Look at you shamelessly plugging the Rackley team in the coffee cup, man. Let
Just
me see
drinking some
it
coffee.
again.
That's all, you know.
Show it to everybody on YouTube. Let's see it.
Cheers,
Boom.
guys.
Cheers. Dilly dilly, man. We're out here. So yeah, dude, Ramsey is probably the best real estate agent that I know. Uh, I'm pretty sure he is 100% everybody's favorite. But that's just a personal opinion. Man, tell us a little bit about, kind of where you're from. You know, you're not originally from Arkansas. How did you end up here doing what you're doing?
Right. Yeah. So I am actually originally from Arkansas. I'm just not originally from Little Rock.
Okay.
I've kind of lived all over. Well, lived in multiple places, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So I went to college. So I'm from Hot Springs originally, about an
Okay.
hour outside of Little Rock.
Dude, I knew that.
Um, yeah.
I knew that.
And then went to University of Central Arkansas for my
Okay.
bachelor's degree. Graduated there in 2010 with a degree in environmental science, planning administration. Moved in basically 2011 to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I
That's
lived
why I
out in LA
said,
for three
that's
years.
why I said what I said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a
Okay.
lot of people think that. They're like, oh, you're not from here, are you? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm from here.
Yeah.
I just came back.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
I
can't
moved
spell
out
your
to
name
LA
right.
in
I don't know where
2011.
you're from. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we
So
even
you
know?
moved.
Do we even know each other?
Yeah. No, not really, dude. Do you work for the Rackley team or are you just like holding their coffee cup?
Just got to keep the throat
Yeah.
wet. That's all.
Yeah. That's right. So, okay. So in 2011, you move out.
Yeah. So July 2011, I moved out to Los Angeles, specifically to work in the environmental sector for a nonprofit called Plug-in America, promoting and advocating for plug-in electric cars. So I lived out there for 3 years, did that whole thing, and then moved to Little Rock in 2014.
Okay. So tell me about Plug in America, because this sounds like a pretty neat little gig.
Yeah.
Uh, are you a
I
Tesla man?
mean, do what?
Are you a Tesla man?
Yes, sir. I currently drive one.
Do
So
you? Did you upgrade?
yeah, man, I upgraded, traded it in and got
Oh,
got the Tesla in December.
what are you
Yeah.
driving?
I
What
drive a Tesla Model Y now.
a Model Y?
Yeah. So it's
Dude.
their newest model.
Okay.
They basically have, in terms of size, Model 3 is the small sedan, Model Y is the small SUV, and there's the Model S, which is a large sedan, and the Model X is a large SUV.
Okay.
So I freaking love it. I knew I was going to love it. I mean, I've been showing off Teslas for years and I've been, driving
Yeah.
them. I have a couple friends with some. But I love it way more than I thought I was going to love it.
Dude, I want to, if I could drive a Tesla for work, I would. So, like
That's what I do.
where I work, I mean, you and I are kind of in the same deal where we're in like a eat what you kill field, right?
Right.
Like with me being in sales, and you basically selling houses and real estate. But man, like I got to put gas in my tank,
Right.
dude, an electric vehicle would go a long ways for me, but the battery pack is just not quite big enough to hit the range that I want.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you were definitely in the minority in terms of the number of miles you drive every day.
Oh, dude, nuts. Absolutely
I
nuts.
mean, I drive a lot, but you drive way more than I do.
I do. So yeah, I'm usually doing, I don't know, on average 1,400 miles a week, something
Right.
like that. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. 400-mile days on Thursday. Let's go. Road trip.
Yeah.
Nothing but podcasts the whole time.
Yeah. There it
So,
is.
all right, man. Yeah, you're working at Plug in America. Okay.
Yeah. So I moved out there to work with Plug-in America, a nonprofit, basically promoting and advocating for plug-in electric cars. I saw a documentary in 2006 called "Who Killed the Electric Car." That exposed me to this whole new industry that I didn't even know anything about, these electric cars, right? And so I'd always been an environmentalist. It's always something I've been passionate about. I love the outdoors. I love to hike. And so protecting this beautiful planet that God gave us has always been something I've been passionate about. So then you take into account, I also have really been into cars since I was a kid. And so I found this way to merge the two, being really into cars, something I can advocate for, and also something that's better for the environment. It just worked. And so basically we would go to various public events, whether it be expos or whatever, and show off these electric cars to the general public, answering questions that they had, showing them off, et cetera. And at the time, that was 2011. We only had three electric cars on the market. We had the Tesla Roadster, the Nissan Leaf, and then the Chevy Volt with a V. And that was basically a plug-in electric at the time. There were some leftover RAV4 EVs from the early 2000s in California, and random other stuff. But really, that was all we had at the time. But there were obviously a lot coming. And then now, there's just a plethora of electric vehicles available. And they've come so far. When we were showing off the Nissan Leaf, the range on that thing was 75 miles. My Tesla Model Y's range is 326 miles.
Dude, that'll get you all over Little Rock.
Yeah,
selling
bro.
houses, man.
Yeah, man.
So, dude, that's so
It's a
interesting.
perfect little mobile office.
Yeah, I've got a customer of mine that he tells me his perfect vehicle would be battery operated for a range of 75 miles and then kick over to fuel after that. He goes, dude, I would never use a fuel because I live like a mile from work. But, if I needed it, I would have it so I wouldn't be hindered by having to stop and charge and move on. So,
90% of Americans drive less than 40 miles a day. Mm-hmm. So General Motors, when they launched the first Volt, that's what they tried to hit, right? And then, so I think they were at 38 miles. Mm-hmm. And then the second generation Volt, it was 53 miles per charge.
Okay, so you would know this, seeing as how you were in this market. What was the price point on a Volt for, somebody who's what was the price point of the Chevy Volt whenever they first came out?
Yeah, I want to say when the Chevy Volt came out, it was like 45 before tax incentives, because there's a $7,500 tax rebate on it, or tax credit.
Yeah.
And then I think before they discontinued it, because they just discontinued it for 2020, I think before they discontinued it, it was maybe 32 before tax rebate or tax credit.
Who is buying that with that short of a range back?
So the average transaction price in America right now is like $36,000 on a new vehicle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what most people's feedback was on the Volt, is that they would end up charging and never really needing gas, and kind of just realized it was a stepping stone for them to be able to trust electric vehicles. And then they just wanted a full electric, the next car. So they didn't want to buy another Volt. They wanted to buy a fully electric, which at the time meant they were going probably to Tesla or someone else, or even the Nissan Leaf. But then now Chevy has launched the Bolt with a B, and they've got two, the Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV. So
okay, what brings you back to Little Rock?
Yeah. So I loved LA. I thought it was an amazing experience. I learned so much. And then just kind of see, moving across the country, uprooting your life, being a poor, right out of college student. There were 8 of us or so, all from the same college, that moved out there together, doing various different things. So it was just an adventure. And then, a number of things had kind of started, rolling in my head towards the end of 2013, where I started thinking, maybe it'd be nice to be closer to family, closer to, closer. I wanted to be in the South again, that kind of thing. And taking the things that I learned, having, moved across the country, lived in the second biggest city in the country, and learned so much. And then being able to go back to a city, or a state, at least, that I loved. I didn't know which city at the time. Go back to a state that I love, and then create the momentum for change there. Right. And then, so I started doing research, if I move back to Arkansas, what does that look like? Where would I move? Do I move back to Hot Springs, my hometown? Do I move back to Conway, where I went to college? Do I move up to Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville, Fayetteville, or do I move to Little Rock? And ultimately, after multiple trips back home, traveling around, eating at various restaurants, I remember I was sitting on the patio at Chow Bachi, and I was like, Little Rock, this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I love Little Rock. It's just an amazing city.
Well, dude, Monica and I, like, we're both Arkansas Razorback alumni. So
Right.
we lived in Fayetteville for years, and we had talked about at one point in time potentially trying to move back there one day.
Right.
And we took a road trip up there. And have you ever gone somewhere and whenever you're pulling into your destination, like it gets like heavy, like
Mhm.
it doesn't feel right. Like
Right.
you're kind of like you're entertaining the idea of maybe, hey, I should like live here,
Right.
but now it's heavy, right? Dude, no way we can move back to Fayetteville anytime soon. Little
Right.
Rock it's been a home to us, and we're so blessed to live here. It's absolutely incredible what all this city has to offer. I mean, downtown's cool. Uh, Churches are great. Food's incredible.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
top 10. From what I've read, we're top 10 in the country for the least number of chain restaurants per capita.
yeah, and I will take
Local
that.
food is huge.
I will take that all day long too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, all day long. And one of the things, especially during like this time in the pandemic, like some of the other states are having a real hard time in the restaurant business,
Right.
right? Little Rock, while we may have limited seating, like our restaurants are still able to operate. And so
Right.
I'm so grateful for that because the last thing that I want is another Chili's or Applebee's
Right. Right.
around the corner.
Maybe back ribs.
Oh, dude, no, I'm gonna pass on those baby back ribs, man. I
Yeah,
don't
when we were kids, that was good. That was
Yeah.
classy. We
Dude,
grew up.
where I'm from, there were two bars in town. Okay, you had whiskey. I think it's Whiskey 101 now,
Okay.
and then you had Club Apple, which was
Mm.
Applebee's, right? So, yeah, dude. I mean, younger me knows a lot about Applebee's, and
Right.
yeah, I mean, I'm glad those days are over. I don't miss
It
Applebee's.
was a good season of life
That's
for the
right,
time,
man.
you know?
It's a season for a reason, dude. I
Yeah,
definitely had to
that's what they
pass on.
say. Exactly.
So as a realtor, relationships are obviously something that are very important to you.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you develop those? Because your time with a potential client, I believe there's like whenever you land a client, there's a like an exclusive right to sell. Is that a thing that you do?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And then you have a set amount of time um, to sell them a house or they can move on. So you're
Yeah.
with this person for how long is it?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, an exclusive right to sell agreement is totally up to us to negotiate.
Okay.
Most of the time it's like a 6 month agreement or so.
Yeah.
Just like a listing agreement when you list a property for sale.
Yeah.
Most of the time people are listing them for about 6 months. Usually you don't need that on either side. Hopefully if you're really gung ho about finding something, you're going to find something in less than 6 months. If you're especially in a hot market like it is right now, you're not going to need 6 months to sell, hopefully either, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's just kind of to cover everyone.
Well, okay, so Ramsey was like our realtor, and we basically called him with the house that we found. So our time together is a business relationship. It was pretty short.
Right.
What's the typical timeline, and how do you keep a business relationship with people who are looking to buy a house? Like, what's the relationship mean to you?
Right. Yeah. 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 So to me, I mean, that's all this business is about is relationships. Right. So I think, every new potential client is a new potential friend to me. I have so many past clients that have now become legitimately real friends that I hang out with. Right. And there's just something about helping someone buy the most expensive thing they've ever purchased that's very emotional, right? And it's also, there's just a lot of sentimental things tied to a house, right? You're going to raise children there. That's the home you bring them home for the first time to, or you move off, or even the sadder side of it, when divorces happen, et cetera. All around, it's just a very emotional process, right? There's a lot of memories and sentimental value like tied to homes. And so to just be a part of helping someone buy this really significant purchase is awesome. And so my goal is to, anytime a new client comes in, whether it's a friend referral, past client referral, or it's a paid lead from some marketing source, I'm going to immediately try to take care of them and treat them with the utmost customer service. I'm going to call them. We're going to chat about their needs, like what they're looking for, what criteria, timelines, et cetera. Right. And based on that timeline that they're going to give me, if they're still on an apartment lease and they got 6 months to find something, we can kind of leisurely look for a little bit and then kind of right at the end, really hit the ground running. Or if they're like, hey, by the way, my lease is up in a month and a half, we got to find something quick, I can kind of expedite that process and we can really hit the ground and try to see as many homes as possible. So really, I try to, just hear them out. I think that's a very important component. Let someone feel heard. And then really at that point, I kind of can come up with what I think based on that conversation they're looking for, things they'd be interested in, homes that they would like. I send those over, say, hey, digitally review these. If these are, if any of these are homes that are of interest to you, let's go see them in person, right? And then even through COVID, there's been, we've done some video showings, but for the most part, a home is something you need to see and feel, right? And so, yeah, I can do a video showing a lot of times for the first time, just to see if it's, got most of the stuff they want. If there's something that wasn't in the photos, but for the most part, I've been working nonstop through the pandemic. People are still going to want to put their feet inside of the home and get a feel for it. Mm-hmm. So just making sure that they feel cared for, and then pursuing that whatever home they choose, helping them, figure out what is a good offer in this type of market, what's a good aggressive offer that gives us a good chance to potentially get the house. And then once we have an accepted offer, then really fighting for them to get the best deal, to get, what repairs do we need to, negotiate, what things are important, helping them negotiate those repairs, helping facilitate all the back end stuff, talking to the lender and the title company and making sure that everything's as smooth as possible so that we can get to, the closing table on time so that they can as seamlessly as possible move from their, previous residence to the new residence, line up movers, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Because there's nothing worse than getting a delayed closing and having to recall the utilities, move it all, move your movers, potentially extend your apartment lease. It can be a little frustrating. So just really caring for people, I think, is the most important.
That would be such a headache, man. Having to like adjust everything. Like, man, I'm glad we didn't have to go.
It happens. And sometimes there's things out of our control. We just had a freeze. So there's pipes that have burst that now the closings are going to have to be delayed potentially for repairs, right?
Yeah.
Things out of our control. But what we can control, I want to try to make sure, works as it should. So
you touched on something kind of in the middle of explaining your relationships. You were talking about making sure that your client feels heard.
Mm-hmm.
That is listening is, it's such an incredible skill because, in the sales world, people will tell you how to sell to them.
Right.
They will tell you exactly what it is they're looking for. Hey, this is exactly what I want. Find me this.
Right.
Find me this. How long did it take you to figure out that maybe I shouldn't push this house or maybe I shouldn't push these houses? And I just want to hear what you have to say. Like, let's go get coffee. Tell me what you
right. Yeah. So I would say, my business partner and I both have kind of said from the beginning that we don't really, especially when someone's purchasing a home, you don't really sell the house. Like, I sell myself and the service that I provide, and hopefully being able to hear them out and to show them that I'm going to serve them well and with a strong commitment. And then the houses are going to sell themselves. We're going to go inside the homes and you're going to walk inside of a house and you're going to know whether it's the house for you, right? There's questions that you're going to ask, obviously, and you're going to defer to my expertise because I have been in thousands and thousands of homes at this point and I've closed hundreds. And so like, oh, is this normal? This cracking, is this, what things should I be looking for, et cetera, right? But I have learned, as much as I want to, cannot predict when you get that feeling when we walk in somewhere, right? So I had, I was showing some clients some property a while back, and I walked in, I was like, oh, this is the one. They're going to love it. We walk in, they're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care. And I was like, okay, well, we got this other one. Well, that house, I really genuinely thought the next house we were headed to, that it was not going to be the one. I thought there's no way they're going to like this house. Twice now, very clearly was like, oh, my clients are going to hate this. But whatever, we'll see it. And we walk in and they're like, I love it. We have to have it. And so you never know. Like there's something to you that you see where you can envision your family there. You know your needs better than I do. And I can try as much as I can to understand them, to hear you out. But at the end of the day, like there's just sometimes a feeling that you get when you walk in a space that just feels like home, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's all a vibe. I mean, it
Yeah.
is, I mean, you know, different vibes for different tribes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's a weird saying, but I'm going to leave it. I mean, it's so like, I don't know. Mike and I toured hundreds of homes. You know, we'd hit open
Right.
houses on Sundays and, you know, we weren't even in the market. And then
Right.
we just wanted to look at this one. And I mean, it was it, dude. This is home.
Right.
So, all right. You're talking about selling yourself.
Right.
That's weird to do,
Yeah.
right? It's weird to do. How do you market yourself? When did you get comfortable doing it? What's it? What is it like to push the name Ramsy Shuffield at? Technically, you're pushing Rackley Realty, but
Right.
the client realtor relationship is with you. What's that like?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say I 100% prefer that other people sell me. Like if I have sold myself well enough by providing a great customer experience and allowed, done everything in my power to make the process smooth, they're hopefully going to tell their friends, family, coworkers about me, and they're going to be the ones selling me, right? And then I just have to provide a great first impression and care for them, immediately and hearing them out. Initially getting in the business, that's the hardest part, right? This is my fifth year or my sixth year in the business. I just had my 5-year anniversary. So headed into year 6. And it's a snowball, right? So like at the very beginning, it's all marketing yourself. It's all like, telling people what you're doing now, that you're helping people buy and sell homes, calling your sphere of influence, calling friends, family, et cetera, building a social media presence, trying to make it fun, and also informative. That's one thing that we really tried to do is, especially with our social media, is bringing value.
How do you stand
So like,
out there,
yeah.
right?
And so
Like,
like, I want it to be fun for sure. Right. But also I wanted to provide value. So like as our team page, especially like we've been really pushing education through there. Like what does contingency mean? What does escrow? What are these things? Right. Um, and so I would say, initially there's a lot of, having to market yourself, and there's a lot more market investment, et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually once that snowball starts to roll, right? So like, that 1 or 2 or 3 clients that I had, they're now telling their friends, family, coworkers about me, right? Now I've represented hundreds of families. Hopefully all hundreds of these families have had a good experience, and they're now telling their friends, family, coworkers about me. And so the calls are coming from them and they're doing the marketing on my behalf, right? Just via word of mouth.
mm-hmm.
That's the most organic way.
Yeah.
But it does take, I still have to maintain, a good social media presence, to not only celebrate the client, right? Because they want to celebrate. What's one of the most, important questions I get asked by them towards the end is, when are we going to take our photo? And especially for me, a lot of them were like, hey, when are we going to take our jumping photo?
Yeah.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
it's just a fun thing. They want to celebrate. They just bought something awesome that they're going to enjoy. And they want to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a fun part of it. And then the other part, of course, is just like, letting people see into the daily life of a realtor. We get to explore homes every day. And I see some weird stuff. I see some awesome stuff. I see some freaking beautiful stuff. And I see some really mind-blowingly terrible things, right? And so I like to give people a little glimpse of that every once in a while via social media, and just show them like, look at this crazy stuff that I get to see. And I all the time, even from out of state friends, they'll be like, keep it coming, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just I live through you. I think that's cool.
I'm a story checker, man.
Yeah.
Like if you have posted something on the stories, man, I'm looking at it. I
Yeah.
remember one of the houses that you had gone through, like you walk through this it's not a front door because it's like a awning type deal, but like their pool's on the left. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see me living here right
Right.
now. Like
Yeah.
just bougie, dude. Like it was such a
Uh-huh.
bougie house. I'm like, this house is calling my name.
Yeah. And did you see
Cool.
the one that I put on my story once? It was in this home that had probably hundreds of African animals that had been killed and mounted. It was like a museum. It was wild.
Okay.
So you never know. Every time you walk into a house, you don't know what you're going to expect.
Here's what I did see a while back. You're talking about celebrating selling these houses.
Yeah.
Dude, you got some hops. Like, like you can jump, dude.
I've been
I,
told that.
I you do your fair share of plyometrics.
Yeah. It's a fun thing. I'm just that excited. I think that's what it is. I'm that excited to celebrate these clients. Like it just gives me ups. That's what it
Dude,
is.
that's such a
And
better
normally I'm
way.
just a white boy who can't jump. But when I'm celebrating, it's next level.
Dude, man, if I was you, I'd have been like, well, that's just the athlete in me. Dude, but well, yeah, I'd be excited if I was you too, man. Hey, hashtag checks coming. But it's still like, the you have accomplished a goal here. That's worth celebrating.
Right.
Right. I have helped you get here.
Right.
Don't call me to help you move in.
Right. I have helped 2 clients, by the way. You never know.
It's kind of neat the multiplier effect that you see in gaining new clients, right? Like
Right.
I don't know that I have sent any business your way yet. I definitely recommend you to like everybody because it really was such a great process. I've got a consumer in one of my stores. He's a banker, and where I drive, it is nothing but Arkansas Delta farmland.
Right.
That's it, and part of Mississippi farmland. But this guy, he'll come hang out in this hardware store. He was telling me he'll spend like 2 hours a day there. Right. And I'm like, dude, aren't you a banker? Like, aren't you supposed to be at work? And he's like, well, I am working. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, if I hang out here where farmers shop, typically I can take them over and we can get some loans going to help them.
Right.
Is there a honey hole for you where you can hang out and just pick up clients?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just being social, right? So the more friends that I make, the more places that I'm social, the more potential clients I have, which that's obviously not like, my goal. And every time I meet someone like, oh, I hope they buy a house from me.
Right.
But it's just so naturally organic, the way the business works, that if it is in my best interest to go out on a Friday or Saturday night to a bar with friends and meet more new people that we all run into than it is for me to sit at home and save money sitting on the couch watching Netflix. Like I make more money being out and about because every 1-2 people that I meet potentially become clients so many times. And it's wild. It's just being places and just being social is the best thing.
So do you carry a stack of business cards with you on Fridays and Saturday nights?
Always have business cards with me. They're always in the pocket, ready to go.
Yeah, dude. So I remember meeting your partner one time. So we haven't talked about Chase, but I wanna ask you about him too. But I remember meeting him one time, and he was just like, "Hey, man, Chase Rackley, I'm a realtor."
Yeah.
And like, dude, that's it. That's all you have to say,
Right.
Like, you have my attention. You've told me what you do. Like, I've got your information, and then like we just move on, dude. Like,
well, when you meet someone new, what is one of the first things you ask them? So what do you do?
yeah,
That's one of the first, small talk items, right?
Yeah.
Where you're from, what do you do? And so when people ask me, what do you do? Immediately I'm like, oh, I'm a realtor. I sell homes,
Mhm.
and I usually just say a little tagline for fun. I just make people's dreams come true. And they love it. They eat it up. But it's the truth. They very frequently will say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And like, me and my wife are looking at this house and, we probably actually should give you a call. Like, I don't say a word. I just tell them what I do. And then immediately they're like, oh, you have the ability to potentially meet a need because everyone's constantly looking at houses, even if you're not in the market.
Yep.
You're seeing it on TV, on HGTV or any other Chip and Joanna Gaines. They're making everyone want to buy a house or renovate a house, etc. You're swiping on Zillow or various other apps, taking it all in. And so people are thinking about homes and housing a lot. And so all I do is say, I'm a realtor. I sell homes. I make people's dreams come true. And they're like, we need to call you. Do you have a card? All the time. I'm like, maybe I have one around here. Oh, I do actually.
Yeah. Let me pull
Just
them
happen to
out of
have
this. Have you ever seen like those card holders, like those like real pristine like business card holders?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let me just slide this perfect little thing out. Oh, I happened to slide this in my pocket before I left home today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, it's interesting just meeting how meeting minimal needs can turn into business.
Right.
Right? Like just the little things. I remember you telling me after we had like finalized the process, if you guys ever need a plumber or an electrician or anything like that, call me. Right?
Yeah.
Odd segue, but the other night, Mike and I come home. It's 7:30 at night, trash day, right? And the garbage truck is parked like almost in front of our driveway. Dude's got the hood up, and he's outside with like this real little flashlight it's so dim, dude. I know this guy can't see anything. And one of the vendors I deal with had sent me some extra like headlights, like go on your head, buttons, bright. And I had an extra one. I walk out there and I was like, "Hey, dude, I know you can't see anything. I don't need this. I've got it. Here's a knife to open it with. Just take this. It's yours. Keep the knife too if you want it." And this guy's going, "Well, what do you do?" And I was like, "Well, I work in hardware sales." Kind of told him, what I do. And he goes, "Well, can you give me an axle for my truck?" And I'm like, "It doesn't work that way, bro." Like, I don't sell axles, right? I'm not the automotive guy, but I mean, it is interesting how meeting a quick need can turn straight into new business.
No, for sure.
So let's take a real quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after the commercial.
All right.
Welcome back. So
hey, you're back.
Yeah, we are back. So
ready to rumble.
Ready to rumble?
Yeah.
Dude, give me a real good "Let's get ready to rumble." Can you do it for the podcast?
Let's get ready to rumble. Was that WWE or something?
No, dude. I think it was the old boxing guy, like way back in the day, with the drop down mic.
I don't remember.
He'd just scream it in there, and he'd hold that forever.
Yeah.
Okay. I had talked about earlier your business partner. I mentioned him a little bit.
Yeah.
Chase Rackley.
Yeah.
Explain to me y'all's relationship and your working relationship as well. Tell us kind of how that works and the team part of what y'all do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I work currently for a company called Rackley Realty, owned by Chase Rackley, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes back to how I got in the business in the first place. I grew up in kind of a real estate family. So both my dad and my grandmother were realtors growing up. So I was exposed to the business at a young age. It's something that I've always been interested in. I love showing property with my dad. I would, even whenever, maybe he would go to sleep or something, I'd search on the MLS for homes. I always thought it was really interesting. And so when I got done with college and I moved out to Los Angeles and got involved in the environmental sector and then had made the move to Little Rock, it was in the back of my mind, like, potentially real estate, et cetera. But I was like, I don't know how to get into it. It's really hard. I know it's hard to get your business started. You got to kind of, really work at it to eventually get that snowball rolling. And so then I was eating at a restaurant here in town, local Lime. And there was a guy named Chase Rackley who was eating in the restaurant, and we saw each other. And I knew Chase because my roommate in Los Angeles was one of Chase's best friends, right?
Okay.
And so I saw Chase and I was like, Chase Rackley, right? He was like, yeah, Ramsy Shuffield, right? And we were like, we're not friends yet, but we need to be friends. Mm-hmm. So because we'd had enough mutual friends, we'd heard about each other, we knew each other, we just had never met. And so he was like, let's grab coffee sometime. And I said, perfect. So we grabbed coffee later that week. and went to Starbucks and just kind of started talking about life and everything going on. And he was asking me, so, what are you doing now? What stage of life are you in, et cetera, et cetera. And so I told him, I was just moved back from LA. I was looking through, job listings, but also potentially looking at grad school. I'd just taken the GRE at the time, getting ready to apply for potentially city planning master's programs, and hadn't really decided. And so then he said, well, have you ever thought about getting into real estate? And I was like, well, of course. I mean, I've thought about it. Both my dad and my grandma were realtors growing up. I love it. But I just don't know that I have the money, on hand to be able to live off of. And otherwise, I'm going to starve to be able to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, what if we start a team? And teams didn't used to be legal in Arkansas back in the day, right? So it's kind of an in recent history thing. And what that allows you to do is kind of take two people or more and say, you focus on buyers, I'll focus on sellers, right? And so immediately he was like, I've already got clients lined up who I can give to you, and you can immediately start having business. So I was licensed in February and had my first closing in April. So it was quick. And I had interviewed multiple people, like people that had gotten out of the business that weren't in it anymore, people that had been in the business for 30 years or more, kind of asking, what are the good, what are the bad, how long, did you feel you had to actually, be in the business before you didn't have to actively, try to build your own business anymore when referrals was your majority of your business, how many closings did you have in your first year, all those things. And one guy was telling me he was in the business for 3 years and had 4 closings. And I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And so I was just preparing, like, I'm going to try to keep a side job maybe. And then my goal was to try to be full-time after a year, completely in the business and doing the side gig. And I had my first closing just a couple months in, and I think I had 13 closings my first year. And then, it's history ever since. So Chase basically owns our company. He's our principal broker.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of Arkansas, you have to basically be a licensed agent, which of course you go to school for, take your test, et cetera, for 2 years. And then you're able to go back to school and get your broker's license and take another test. And then after 2 years. And so once you're a broker, then you can actually own your own company and oversee people, or you can just sign potentially your own contracts if your company lets you as your broker. But everyone has to be brokered. There has to be someone who overlooks the contracts, oversees them, and signs off on them, and then really is legally responsible for you. So Chase is our principal broker. I'm actually our executive broker, our designated executive broker for the firm. So any of our buyers agents who have clients, immediately their contracts are going to come to me. I have to look them over, sign them, or call them and say, hey, can you correct this? And then all that kind of stuff. So in addition to working with my own clients, buyers and sellers, I'm also, helping other teammates go through the process with their own, clients, helping answer questions, looking over their contracts, potentially leading trainings and that kind of thing.
So that would explain why you're replying to some of my text messages, emails, whatever, way late in the evening.
Yeah.
Right. Because you've got to run a full day and then probably take your evening time, I'm assuming.
So, I mean, it's definitely hard because, during the day, I'll be out and about showing property, meeting with clients, et cetera. And, there's a certain level of acceptable being on your phone. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be on my phone the whole time I'm with the clients. And so I have to use, especially times that I have free, whether I'm sitting in the drive-thru at a stoplight, or whether I'm laying in bed getting ready for the night or whatever, to check the email, make sure I don't have any contracts to sign. And just in general, I'm probably going to be up working late anyway. So I naturally, when I first got into the business for years, I was probably up till 2 a.m. every night working. And then I would be back at it by, I would be back at the office by 7:30 in the morning. So.
Dude, I had a coach I used to work for by the name of Jeff Traylor, and I don't know how true this is in relation to his schedule, but when I met this guy, he was a high school coach, right? He was a head coach at a school in Texas. Well, he ends up leaving this school to go straight to the University of Texas to be a tight ends coach. right? And so there's a learning curve there. And rumor has it this dude's schedule was 4 a.m. to 2 a.m. He'd sleep for 2 hours and then he'd do it again. And but dude, the grind of even a 2 a.m., excuse me, a 7:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. Like, how do you get used to that little sleep? You
Right.
know?
Yeah, I think number one, you do have to learn balance, right? I mean, anytime you get into a new career, you're gung ho, you're excited, and it's just part of it, right? And you just got to put in the time, and then at some point you realize, okay, well, I also need to protect myself and I need to create hours, right? And a realtor is always on. So 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, people are contacting me about houses, right? Because I've got nursing clients who are working nights. Well, they're on their break sending me homes at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And I'm not responding, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're still thinking about these things and they're sending it over to me. I've got clients who come in at 10 o'clock at night who are like, hey, can I see this house, first thing tomorrow, especially in the hot market. If a house hits the market, you need to make an appointment as quickly as possible to see it. And sometimes I have to cancel my evening plans to be like, hey, as soon as you get off work, we got to get in there because this house is probably going under contract today.
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be late to dinner, or hey, we're going to have to cancel dinner because I got to show these properties. And so you just got to be prepared. I mean, it's an amazing job because I do have a lot of flexibility. I'm a contracted employee, so I don't have, vacation time, PTO, any of that. So I have to create my own, nest egg to be able to live off of. I take time off, et cetera, or, some like plan things around for people to be able to take care of my clients if I can't. I've been in Cape Town, South Africa on the top of Table Mountain on the phone with a client before. And so, I mean, I was on vacation, but they had questions. I
That's
had
right.
answers.
That's right, dude. Well, I mean, I think in the sales world, just because you're on vacation does not mean that you're not answering that cell phone.
Right.
Dude, if it rings, it's pretty important. Um, you had kind of talked a little bit about, you ever like lose your train of thought, like right in the middle of,
Oh, 100% all the time.
dude, definitely just happened. That's okay. So let's talk about this market. I got my thought back. Okay.
Yeah.
Hot market. Earlier, you mentioned aggressive offers.
Right.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what you saw in 2020, late 2019,
Yeah.
because it's been crazy.
Right. So I'll go ahead and just preface. I got in the business in 2015, right?
Mhm.
And so well, I guess beginning of 2016, I started getting interested. Chase and I had met end of 15. I was licensed beginning of 16, right? So the market has been hot, right, since I've been in the business, but it just keeps getting hotter. And so I've never known a down market or a market that a crash. Obviously, I was not in the business in 2008 whenever that all happened. We had always been seeing like just a hot market. There are multiple offers, but you usually had, if a house at the market, a couple of days at least to go see it. Through when we were heading into the beginning of 2020, the end of 2019, the Feds lowered the interest rates because they were seeing that there was kind of a little bit of plateauing in not only the housing market, but just in the economy, right? And so they're like, we're just going to lower the interest rates a little bit because we were starting to see mortgage rates. When I first got in the business, the lowest interest rate I saw at a closing was like 2.25. I saw right at the end of 18, beginning of 19, probably 5%, almost like 5.5, 5.25. Like headed towards the sixes, which in the grand scheme of things, those are still crazy low. I mean, I talked to a realtor who'd been in the business for 30 years. He said he knew 16% interest rates, right? And so people have to have homes. We have to have shelter. People will always buy homes. It just affects pricing and the volatility of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they lowered the rates and they started getting back down to the threes, et cetera. Well, then when the pandemic hit, they super lowered them to try to keep things moving. And, now I'm seeing clients again getting interest rates for 2.75, 2.5%, which is crazy, right? Just so low. And so because of that, you've just got an increased buying power for all these buyers, right? They're like, well, I want to take advantage of these great interest rates. They now can buy, instead of buying a $200,000 house, they now can buy a $225,000 house, right? Because their buying power is increased with lower interest rates. And so there's a lot of factors. And plus, you've got people in a pandemic quarantining at home, being forced in the space that may have not have spent that much time in before, now being forced to look around and being like, I need out of here, or like, I want to change this, and this. Let's just buy something new, or I need a home office, or I need more space because we're all stuck here, schooling from home, working from home, etc. And so, just in general, a lot of factors were all part of it. This market just got wild. And there had been some other markets around the country that had experienced multiple offer situations that exceeded, say, 8, 10 offers. And, it's wild. I mean, I'm hearing stories, especially from other cities. One of my friends just bought a house in Atlanta. She got it, and she was one of 75 offers, right?
Dude, that's nuts.
Wild. And sometimes, in certain markets like that, like they're having to pay more than asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then waiving the appraisal, because anytime you pay for a house and you're getting a loan, you always have to still get an appraisal, right? And the bank is not going to lend more than the house appraises for. You have the ability to obviously bid more for the house than it's worth, but you have to pay the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the times in a normal market, you're like, oh, whatever the house appraises for, we're going to want to be close to that. And if it doesn't appraise, then we lower the purchase price and we move forward. Well, in a hot, crazy market with multiple offers, people are offering to say, hey, I'll go under contract $10, $15, $20,000 over, and whatever it appraises for, I'll just pay the difference. So we're seeing every once in a while, someone pay maybe 10, 15 grand out of pocket in addition to their down payment and potentially even closing costs to get in the house. And this is not all the time, but it definitely is more common than it used to be. I mean, it's not anything crazy. Like, I have a friend in Austin, they just bought a house. They paid $150,000 over asking for that house.
Man.
So, you never know.
Okay. So while we're right here,
yeah,
I was telling one of my sales rep buddies about the fact that we were going to be talking tonight and kind of what you do. And he actually had a question for you. His name's Caleb. So
bring it.
Caleb,
what's your question, bud?
Here's your Caleb, what's your question, man? Listener mail on the Daily People podcast. So, hey, so he's wondering, do you see a second housing bubble burst towards the end of this year based off the forbearance on these mortgages for the last year, as well as what default rates were looking like from the 2018, 2019 before the pandemic started?
Yeah. Hey, Caleb, great question. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's the smartest question that's ever been asked on this podcast, by the way.
Right. So this is always the question in real estate, right? People ask me, can you look into your crystal ball and tell me if this neighborhood is going to, increase in value or is this neighborhood going to increase in value better? There's a million factors, right? I, going into 2020, thought that the market was about to go either level or go down potentially, right? Because we'd seen so many years in a row of just like steady increase property values and, in the general timeline of history, property values will always go up, right? You may have a year or two where there's like a little bit of a dip, but it's always going to head back up, right? The general trajectory for price is always going to go up because there's more humans every day on this planet and we don't make more land, right? We're not making any more land and we have to feed these people. We have to have homes for these people. Like the people have to be cared for. And so it will always naturally go up. Sometimes it can be a little overinflated and it can go up too quickly and then it has to correct itself, right? And so that's something that, yes, I think is totally possible for us to see. In 2008, there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes that were not necessarily above board. And so therefore it was a perfect storm of things that happened and it crashed hard, right? And our market in Little Rock wasn't as affected. Some markets were obviously affected way worse than we were. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what exactly happens going into 2021 and into 2022 with, potentially forbearances, et cetera. And I think it's going to be very different from state to state and city to city. And each state obviously was allowed to come up with its own COVID restrictions, right? And so some went into a full lockdown, some went into, partial lockdown, some didn't really have a lot of mandates. And so everyone was a little differently affected. So some people like no one's working, and some people it's like everyone's still working, and some it's like, oh, maybe half the people are working. And Arkansas has, done a good job of creating a balance. And so, we still have, like, even during the pandemic, there's still traffic on the roads, which to me is an indicator of how many people are getting out and about and going to and from work, right? And there's still people buying homes, and there's restaurants are still open. We've seen a couple of restaurants here and there closed, but for the most part, some states are full closed still, like are just now reopening, et cetera. And so I think we won't see as hardcore of a negative response. I think there may still be a negative response. I don't really know how many people, what the numbers are in terms of the number of people in forbearance. I think when I look around to who I know, right, the people in my sphere, my friends, my family, coworkers, people that we go to church with, et cetera, who do I know that's lost a job? I think it's caused a lot of movement, right? So people moving jobs or even moving states or cities for jobs. But I haven't seen personally a ton of people that are now like homeless or unable to pay their mortgage. I know that it's out there. I just don't know them. So therefore, I don't have that direct like interaction with them to know that they're for sure going into foreclosure after the forbearance is over, et cetera, yeah. Right? So it's hard to read into my crystal ball. My crystal ball is broken right now, and I just cannot predict. But I always say, make wise financial investments so that you can be prepared. And I think if there's one thing that we all learn from this is like, you don't know what tomorrow will hold, right? And so you always need a little bit of a nest egg to have as a fallback, a little bit of savings. And really, most people used to recommend 3 months in your savings of living expenses, et cetera. Then they went to 6, and now they're saying, potentially 9 to 12 months, of savings in your account to be able to pay all your bills should something happen. You never know.
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate that point of make wise financial decisions, right? At our age, Ramsey, you're, how old are you? 33?
34.
34. So, and I'm 26, we still have a lot of stupid, in us, but, making those wise decisions and, hey, try to have somebody up ahead of you that could maybe mentor you a little bit. That's not your parents, right? Somebody that might speak into you a little bit, but make wise financial choices. Buy a Tesla, right, yes. Ramsey? That's right, dude. So, okay.
Buy Tesla, save money.
Yeah. Hey, let's get out of real estate for a bit. So Ramsey is a super involved dude, right? Very much so, especially in church, right? You are leading a ministry. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've been, hanging out with the young adults for a bit and leading small groups with them. And it has been an absolute blast because for me, I am so energized by being with people, but also meeting new people, right? I love to meet new people. I love to, build friendships with them, take them to coffee, hear their story. What are they been through? What are they going through, et cetera. And which is amazing because of the line of work that I'm in. That's what I get to do for a living as well, to a certain degree. And so, ministry to me is just, it's so organic and it works so great that way. And to be able to hear where people are coming from, like what they're going through. And I mean, this whole year has been a challenge, right? Like people are dealing with loneliness and, just all of these struggles that they may not have dealt with before, or that are new to them, and are just new to our whole culture and society in general. And so being able to kind of meet with them and talk through those things and then let them know that, number one, now I'm here to care for you, pray for you. And then Jesus is awesome, and we're all going to make it through this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Dude, I've kind of watched your ascent, I guess, into ministry. And dude, it makes complete sense, knowing you through our church, right? Like,
right.
I mean, you're really a great leader in everything that you do. And
Thank
so,
you, sir.
dude, I mean, I know the people that you speak to have got to appreciate your leadership, right? So keep that up, man. Keep doing the awesome things that you're doing. So,
Yes, man. Well, shout out to you guys. You guys, you're the real MVPs.
no, dude. Hey, our kids, man. So my wife and I, we lead a high school ministry, and dude, our kids, man, they energize us just like your people do, right?
Right.
It's there. I'm not gonna lie, dude. There are some times where it's hard to want to go do the ministry, but
Right.
then you get there and you're instantly full, man. Like,
It's so fulfilling.
yeah, it really is. And I don't know if I'm the best leader in the whole wide world, but I know that I love students. I think they're incredible, and the energy that I put into them, they put back into me, and then it escalates, right? It just goes like straight. It goes through the roof, man. Like our high school students, last year we had like some real artsy students, and that's cool. But I'm a competitive person. Right. And so it was kind of weird trying to pull a competitive side out of artistic students. But this year, man, we've got some competitors, dude. Uno gets wild. I mean, it really
Yes.
does. Yeah. We've
What
got
about
one
spoons? Have you
kid.
played spoons? I
Oh,
know it
dude,
can
we
be a
break
little
fingers
thing.
at spoons, dude.
It's basically a contact sport.
Yes, it is, dude. It is football without the pads.
Right.
And yeah. So, dude, I'm telling you, table slip in spoons. Right.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a kid that every time he loses, he screams at the top of his lungs, "Y'all are cheating! Y'all are cheating!" Right? Oh, y'all are cheating! And he doesn't just say it once; it's like 5 times. He's absolutely awesome, man. Such a cool dude.
Well, if you want to do a spin on spoons, I've heard recently that you, instead of doing where everyone's around a table and the spoons are in the center and you're all playing, you put a table or the spoons on a different table across the room, right? Which would work perfect at the church. And you're playing spoons. And when someone gets four of a kind, they have to take off running. Well, then everyone else has to take off running. And it really becomes full contact.
Oh,
So if you
dude,
want to up the ante,
I'm out.
put the spoons on the other side of the room.
Yeah, dude, our budget is not strong enough for those repairs.
For the broken ankles,
Yeah,
broken
yeah.
noses.
No, dude, it's not. That is a good spin, though.
Yeah.
So, hey, last thing I want to ask you:
Yeah.
do you have any life advice or wisdom for listeners tonight?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah,
Life advice or wisdom.
yeah,
I
man.
would say, every day you got to wake up and choose to love people through whatever you're doing, right? Whether it be your coworkers, your clients, your customers, whatever you interact with. Wake up every day to love people and treat them with dignity and respect. And then everything else kind of just works out. That's what I say.
Boom. Ramsy Shuffield dropping the mic. I love it, man. Hey, bro, thanks for taking the time to come on and do the show. I really appreciate it. I hate that our internet kicked out whenever we started. We had such a great transition into the podcast earlier, but you know what? Take two, I think, is even better than take one anyways.
Yeah, it's fine.
So, Ramsy, tell everybody where we can find you on social media. I don't know if you want to give your phone number out, your email, social security number.
I'll give all the things. So security numbers, let's start with that. So for it now. So find me on Instagram at Ramsy Shuffield, and that's RamsyShuffield.
Yeah.
At Ramsy Shuffield, just my full name. I'm also on Facebook, Rackley Realty. We have a Facebook page there too, and another Instagram for them. RackleyRealty.com is our website. Like, comment, subscribe. Find this guy, John Mark. Make sure you are subscribing to both his YouTube channel and his podcast.
That's right. At the Daily People Podcast. Thanks again, brother.
Yes, man. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.